Hey folks, it's Tom at FrugalPrepper. It's back. This is the one that I found the weird alternator waveform on before. He put the factory alternator back in it, and for 2 weeks it was fine. Not a single problem. And then the other day, like on Friday, it started dying on him and not wanting to restart and doing all kinds of the same crazy stuff. Has the same crazy U codes in it. And the same problems. So I said I'd take a look at it again. What he is noticing though is it seems to be here lately when he's turning. It'll lose the power steering, and then it'll die, and then it won't restart, and then he'll go up and wiggle the cables and play with it and do all kinds of stuff, and eventually it'll restart again. Now, could be something with those cables, which I'm going to retest for voltage drop on those, the main battery cables. But still the same problem. So obviously the alternator was a problem. It was putting out a dirty signal, but it's not the problem. So sometimes you run into that. So what I did is I cheated. I went on Mitchell On Demand and bought the truck for a month. It's $20. I just used the Mitchell On Demand DIY for my newer cars. I pulled up this tech service bulletin: steering jerks or kicks back, reduced power steering assist, engine stall, no start, service STABILITRAK, IPC radio, HVAC goes blank, various DTCS. Sounds exactly like what we're having, and it applies to this truck. And we see down here, reduce or loss of power steering assist, when it's equipped with electric power steering, which it does have. Steering wheel jerks or kicks back when turning. Service STABILITRAK message with warning chime, engine stall. IPC going blank, the instrument panel. The radio ICS going blank, the HVAC going blank. Hood ajar message, alarm sounds when locking doors. And that's another thing he had the other day, was the door lock start going right when this was happening. So basically it tells you cause one, this condition may be caused by battery cables when high resistance are at the connections, so we check that. Condition may be caused by a poor BCM ground. 218. Cause 2. Cause 3, a loose starter shield contacting the starter battery cable ring. Has been mislabeled or rotated when installed. So we're going to check that too. I'm going to crawl under it and just look at that connection. But from what I'm seeing, all the research I've done, Googling, this ground 218 is a really common problem on these. And the bolt just gets loose and it makes intermittent contact. So you have to take that panel out, trim it off, trim off the insulation, the foam stuff around it, and then tighten the bolt down really good. And it could be charged by a discharged battery. We know we don't have that. But it gives you good pictures in here and how to check the voltage drop, all that kind of stuff. Like I said, I did this once. We'll do it again before it leaves. And, you know, make sure the battery cables are on right, all that. But I think it's probably that ground 218. So we're going to take it apart and we're going to look at it. Now, ground 218 on this guy is right up under here. So we got to tear this dash out to get to it. But you don't have to tear the whole thing out, just this front cover part. It's actually pretty easy. We just take that off. We take this piece off, and then we pop that up out of there. It all clips in. So we are going to do that, and I'll come back once I get this torn off, and we'll take a look at the ground. And the other thing on this truck is I drove it quite a bit this morning and yesterday evening. I took it through town, I took it through the highway, I drove it around, I did all kinds of sharp power steering maneuvers. Never failed. Never had a problem. So these intermittent ones can be really troubling to find, and sometimes you do have to just jump on and read the TSBs or get an Identifix on it and look through that too. So sometimes you have to just do that because somebody else has found that there's a common issue on these and they've already tracked it down. Saves you a lot of time and energy. So a couple things if you're doing this job is, number one, you have this little light right here, or whatever this is, sensor. Yeah. That you don't have to unplug it. You can just twist it a little bit and it pops out of the dashboard. And it comes out of this hole right here. The other thing is when you pull this trim piece off. Now that trim piece has the 2 bolts for the handle, 10 millimeters, that have to come out, and then you just pull on the handle and pull it out. This piece you have to pry down. There's an airbag right there. But you have to take this part off right here, and it just slides out and unclicks from that piece. So you want to be careful pulling it out, that you don't pull too hard and then have something come. So our ground is back in here. It's that little bolt right there that we're going after. And so basically, I don't know, I might see if I can't take that speaker out of the way. But it looks like it bolts into this plastic, so we just have to get back in there to that bolt and take a look at it. But that's our ground back in there. All right, so I had to take my long easy red ratchet to get back in there to that bolt. Was the only thing I could use. But that's it. And it was loose. I'll see if I can move it here. But I can move the cable around under that bolt just a little bit. So we're just gonna pull that cable out and we're just gonna look at it, clean it, make sure the connection's good on it, and then put it all back in there. In fact, this thing was loose enough that I didn't even need the ratchet to get it off of there. I could turn it with my fingers. So yeah, that's probably definitely the issue. Yep, probably is. All right. All right, so there's ground 218. You can see it looks a little oxidized too. I'm going to clean that up really good. And I don't know that I can get anything back there to actually clean the bolt that it goes on, but I'm sure once it's back down on there and it's tight, it'll make a good ground. I'm kind of curious if we leave that ground off and start it up, what happens. Let's see if it'll even start. See if it shows the same symptoms. Oh yeah. There's nothing. No start, no nothing. It's completely dead. Damn, I'm turning the key. Completely dead. Which is exactly what it was doing. And now we hook that back up. We just stick it back down on that bolt a little bit. Loose like it was. It kind of started to flash. Now it's back. It starts up. And now let's move it around. And the engine's still running. It's not running right. It's running like really slow. And the engine don't shut off. Now it shut off once I hooked that back up. Now, that's our problem. That's the symptoms that we're having. So that's what it was. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and just clean that and put it back on there. Making sure it's nice and tight. Good and tight. Good and tight. All right. And we can clean this nut off. See, it's not too bad, but yeah, we'll clean that off. We'll clean that connector off, and then we'll put it back together. All right, I don't know if you can see this or not, but there's this plastic under here that needs trimmed back. I pulled it off to the side a little bit, but let me see if I can get this wrench back in there to show you. I don't know, let's see. This right here is like a foam kind of plastic, and it was all the way up against this bolt, so the bottom of that ground was touching this. It was not touching the bolt at the bottom. So I'm gonna trim that off. I've seen this on a couple other YouTube videos too. Trim that back so the bottom of that connector makes good contact and it's not reliant just on this nut, because this nut has this built-in washer, which isn't necessarily going to always make good contact. And of course it comes loose and it starts making bad contact. It's not making good contact on the bottom, and boom, there's your problem. So we will go ahead and trim that back, or just cut that little section of that foam out so that it's not around that stud. All right, so what I did was just go down in there and take this part of that foam out. I had to get a pair of long needle nose pliers, grab it, pull it up back to above this speaker, and then just cut it. And that gives us nice clearance now to that stud, so that ground will be properly connected. That's just an assembly thing. When they were assembling the truck, somebody didn't pay attention to that, and shoot, and lo and behold, you start having bad grounds. All right, so here we are. I've got the ground back on there. Everything's good and clean and tight. That foam cover is no longer underneath of the ground, causing it not to make contact. And the bolt's good and tight, so it doesn't come loose. I put a little bit of my blue Loctite on there just to make sure that bolt stays good and tight. And we'll start it up, make sure it starts. It seems to start. Yep, there's the radio. Radio, I think, has lost all of its presets.
Street cure, prevent any disease or illness.
But, yep, the air conditioning's working. The radio took a few seconds to come online. I think it was just reinitializing after having lost its ground and all that. But yeah, now it comes right back on. Everything seems to be working now. So I think that was the issue. All right, so I redid the voltage drop test on it. They came out fine again. Now, as far as that starter wire they're talking about being misplaced, I did not do that. You gotta take the plastic cover off, jack it up, get up under there. And that ground, that bolt was finger tight. It definitely had the rubber cover under it. Classic. It's a classic problem from what I'm seeing. Like, not like super common, but when it has it, that's what it is. So I'm gonna get back to him, let him drive it, see if it does it anymore. If it does do it, then I can crawl under it and look at that starter wiring. But I'm telling you, it was that ground. All right, Tom, FrugalPrepper. I'll talk to y'all later. And the dashboard's all back together. I'll just snap some pops back together, except for those two bolts over there. And someone broke one of the clips off of that cover tab for that top bolt, so it's been apart before. All right, I'll talk to y'all later.